Whoa! Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with another updated World Cup prediction video now that all the teams have officially qualified. I gave you my earliest thoughts as soon as the draw was out, but there were still some teams missing. I had to guess which of those playoff teams would make it for that video, and yeah, a lot were wrong.
I literally have no idea how they got there.
So now that everyone's here, I'm going to give another rundown for each of the groups. And of course, since there were some friendlies that just happened as well, we'll be going over each of these teams' forms, the situations. A lot has developed for many of these national teams, so I will try to cover as much as I can, but in this video in particular, I'm only going over the group stage. So if you want to see an updated knockout prediction video as well, just don't forget to leave a like. This video hits 4,000 likes. I'll try to upload that ASAP. Also, please don't forget to subscribe if you're new for much more World Cup content to come. I did want to upload this video even earlier than I am now, but by the time you're watching this video, I have just moved to a new apartment. So I just had a lot going on. Pretty bad timing, but this will be the last time you see me record a video in this room, at least for a while. But anyway, starting off with Group A. Now it's updated, obviously. Before, I thought it would be Ireland that would make it, but we actually got Czechia, who many people underestimated in those playoffs, as Denmark looked to be the favorites on paper in that path, but also Ireland were going through an absolute high before that March window. And the high looked to continue into their match against Czechia. They scored 2 early goals, but shout out to Czechia. They kept their nerve and eventually scored 2 themselves. To take the match to extra time and penalties, they won the shootout there. People started to gain awareness of this side's ability once again, but still, most people, including me, didn't think they could do it against Denmark. Well, they pulled off the exact same thing. 2-2 scoreline and winning on penalties there as well. Obviously, appointing the new manager, Miroslav Kubek, has really paid off. But this side have some well-known talent and some new rising stars. Everyone knows the likes of Patrick Schick, phenomenal striker on his day. And there's also the West Ham veteran Souček. And now Pavel Suc, who is doing really well at his first season in Lyon. Their captain, who's only 26 years old, Krejci. This defender got 3 direct goal contributions out of Czechia's 4 goals in their last 2 matches in the playoffs. Obviously, his club has not necessarily had the greatest season, but his individuality stands out for sure. I'm curious to see how Czechia go forward. This is their first World Cup in 20 years. They only qualified as an independent nation once in 2006. Have they been perfect in these playoffs? Obviously not, but they showed so much fighting spirit, and that very much can be enough in this group. Now let's take a look at their other opponents who we have analyzed before, obviously, starting off with Mexico. This host nation very much impressed me in this last international break. They had 2 very difficult friendlies. Sure, they didn't win, but they didn't lose either. USA had the same opponents and they conceded 7 goals in total, while Mexico only conceded 1 against 2 very highly regarded European teams. I know Portugal was playing without Ronaldo, but still, we already know how stacked this side are as of late. Feels like it's been the first time in a while we saw L3 play with so much identity. Against Belgium, they actually really showed dominance in that first half, showed so much aggression. Unfortunately, their first choice, Malogun, will be ruled out for this World Cup. He suffered a heavy injury. The national team are overall undergoing an injury crisis, but they should have some names returning before the world's biggest stage begins. So these are positive results going into this. I have a strong belief that Mexico will turn the gear no matter what once the World Cup begins, and they'll at least excel in this group stage. Many players from Chivas impressed in this window as well, like Gutierrez. Now, someone who didn't really have such a great last international break, though, from this group was South Korea. They suffered a 4-0 loss to the Ivory Coast and also lost to Austria 1-0. I know these are just friendlies, they don't necessarily mean the world, but I've been showing a lot of concern for South Korea in my previous videos, and these friendlies don't really do any justice for me to bump them up a notch. I said it before and I'll say it again. Myungbo Hong, he definitely isn't the best choice for South Korea. It doesn't really seem like he has a long-term plan going forward. Of course, he qualified them, but he did scrape through some results that he should have won more convincingly. I don't really trust South Korea still, I'm not gonna lie, even if they have some great personnel to their disposal, like Min Jae Kim, Heung-min Son. But one player to for sure watch out for that can be the difference maker is Hyung-gu Oh. He has just signed for Besiktas and has been phenomenal since he has joined the Turkish club. 6 direct goal contributions in 7 matches. You know what? I'll give you guys my first prediction off the bat. I'm still going to put Korea at 4th place. South Africa failed to get a win in this last window, and they played Panama in 2 separate friendlies. But unlike all these other teams in this group, South Africa just endured a major international tournament. AFCON. There, I'm not gonna lie, it seemed like they kind of lost their spark. I've always praised this side's midfield with the likes of Mokoena, and although he did have his moments, the midfield as a whole just kind of seemed to not click at times with their forwards. They got narrow victories against Angola and Zimbabwe, and lost to Cameroon, playing very electric football in that match, just failing to connect the dots at times. Although it hasn't been as positive compared to before when they were killing it in the World Cup qualifiers and also got third place in the AFCON prior to this one, I think they still can go into this World Cup with a good amount of belief. They play some very unique, energetic football, very united side. I already talked about how Hugo Bruce is doing wonders for this team. He's been able to unify so many players from the South African League very well together. Ronald Williams still class in between the sticks. Their wonder kid Mbokazi is having a great start to his new MLS club, Chicago Fire. In my last video, I rated South Africa very, very highly. I don't think I'm going to do that this time around, but I still think they have a solid chance to do somewhat well in this group. This group is filled with infinite possibilities, and I really see it being back and forth with many of these sides, really being separated by the finest of margins, but here's going to be my order for now. I already said South Korea 4th, but at 3rd place, I'm going to put South Africa, but they will be one of the 3rd place sides to advance to the knockouts. At 2nd, I will be putting Czechia. 1st place might be bold, but I'm going to go with Mexico. There's always talk about there being some host narrative, obviously, and who knows, things might go in the USA's favor one way or another, but Mexico, out of all the hosts, I have the most belief that their fans are actually going to turn up and provide that proper home atmosphere. The national team's already in decent form. They're going to have more depth by the time the World Cup rolls around, so I actually think they have what it takes to top this group. We move on out to Group B with a new addition most people did not expect, Bosnia. They're going to be playing Czechia, Switzerland, and Qatar. Komšije, bravo za kvalifikaciju na svjetsko prvenstvo. This is your chance to continue going. You fully deserve to qualify over Italy. I have seen a few tweets of such saying that it's ridiculous that Italy are not at this World Cup when the likes of Curacao and Haiti are. Even their manager Gattuso complained about UEFA's qualifiers. Some people saying there should be more room for European teams. No, this is the World Cup, and Italy had their chance. And in the match against Bosnia, they did not play well whatsoever. Bosnia dominated the stats, and when you watch the match, Italy were misplacing so many careless passes. If Bosnia were more clinical, they honestly could have won by 4 goals. But shout out to this national team for their incredible fighting spirit. Similar to Czechia, in both of their playoff matches, they advanced on penalties. And they were not the favorites for most people going into each match. Ali Bosno, dobrodošli to your 2nd World Cup. The last time they played in it was in 2014, where they were only able to defeat Iran. The group back then was quite difficult. I'd argue now, they definitely have more of a shout to do wonders in this one. This national team not that long ago were in abysmal form. They failed to get a single win in 2024. They finished 2nd to last place in their Euro qualifier group. This national team never qualified for the Euros. But then after Barbares took over, he built this side with more and more identity, and they actually handled the World Cup qualification very well. Not just in those playoffs, he also went toe-to-toe with many other top teams, failing to defeat Austria but still put off a really close fight with them, beating Romania twice, scoring some wonder goals in their 2nd match, where we saw the likes of Esmir Bayraktarovic truly shine. He's done so well for Bosnia, and he actually was eligible to play for the United States as well, so now with him getting all this spotlight, America is reminding everyone that he could have represented the USMNT. But he made the right choice. Look how much pride he plays with his nation. He's not the only young player to really shine on this national team though. There's also Ale Begovic, the 18-year-old, who assisted Edin Dzeko to get the equalizer against Wales and scored the winning penalty in that match. And they have so many striker options too, Demirovic and even Tabakovic smoking packs in the Bundesliga. But can't talk about the striker options without mentioning the main man, Edin Dzeko. He's heading into this World Cup at 40 years old. He's been with the national team for ages. He scored in 20 consecutive years for Bosnia. The biggest threat to this group is probably going to be Switzerland, let's be real. They went all of 2025 undefeated, like I mentioned before. They just picked up their first loss in this March window in a crazy fight against Germany. And Florian Wirtz had a masterclass, so can't really knock them for that result, especially considering they scored 3 themselves. Then a 0-0 draw to Norway. Quite the contrast, obviously, to that Germany result, but these were some tough opponents they took on. And on paper, they're definitely the favorites in this group. The midfield options they have are insane. Xhaka with the experience captaining this side. There's also the wonder kid Manzabi, who is extremely versatile. Zakaria. And then even when you look at their attacking options, whenever Mbolo's silent, he still pulls through for the national team. And it's the same case for Ndoye on Nottingham Forest. I'd be extremely surprised if they don't do well in this group. Surely they're going to get at least first or second. Yakin has been at the helm for a while and he has a lot of experience with this side, so I'm going to say the Swiss have what it takes to get first still. I'm a bit torn for second and third. The only thing I'm still going to keep is Qatar being at fourth. Yes, sure, these are back-to-back Asian Cup champions, but both of those tournaments were on their own home soil. You saw it in the World Cup qualifiers as well. When Qatar have to travel away, things don't go that well for them. They're also the first ever host nation to get 3-for-3 losses at the World Cup. They even failed to get a win at the last Arab Cup. One of their center backs is going to be suspended for the first match, Tarek Salman. All eyes are definitely going to be on Akram Afif. He can be the key ingredient to success, but even though this is not the most challenging group on paper, I still think it's going to be an obstacle for Qatar. The only team we haven't talked about so far is Canada, but I definitely think it's a toss-up for them to get either second or third in this group. Obviously, the quote-unquote host narrative, their opening match is against Bosnia. Just like Mexico, they drew both of their recent friendlies, but they definitely were against sides that are not as strong on paper. All their goals scored across 2 matches as well were penalties. Canada are also searching for their first ever World Cup win. Many people hyped them up in 2022 and they kind of failed to deliver. Regardless though, I'd argue that their squad is even more deadly compared to the last tournament. Kone is developing in the midfield more and more. Tejan Buchanan has been a decent signing within La Liga, not the Champions League. Some comments about Jonathan David not really settling in well at Juventus, but you still can't deny his quality. Some injury scares though up top, like Promised David. From Alphonso Davies, he should be fit for the World Cup. I do think their manager Jesse Marsch, he's a great fit for Canada. To me, he's been one of the more passionate managers in recent times, and although the results haven't been necessarily perfect, let's not forget he also made it to a semi-final in the Copa America, better than any CONCACAF nation at that tournament, by the way. I think they're definitely capable of getting their first World Cup win. I'm just not necessarily sure how they're going to do against the European sides. I'm going to say that it'll be Bosnia that gets second place and Canada third, but Canada's still one of the third place teams that do advance. All right, now we move on to Group C with Brazil, Morocco, Scotland, and Haiti. All these teams have already been confirmed, but of course, have played a few matches since. Morocco more than a few, to be fair, as they just hosted AFCON. Oh boy, where do we go from here? Yeah, at the time of this recording, these are the alleged winners. Although Senegal on the pitch did win that final, even lifted the trophy, but months later, Morocco did get confirmation that they won it themselves, as there was so much drama in that final, one of the most dramatic finals in history. But Morocco's football project has definitely been on the rise. This side made it to the semi-finals of the last tournament. The reason why they have been so successful recently is because of their investment in the Mohammed Academy and overall facilities as well. I just had the privilege to go cover some matches at AFCON during the group stage, and my gosh, this really does feel like a football nation. Football facilities and pitches are just all over the place. This nation are definitely taking everything very seriously, and it's a shame that this whole AFCON final incident happened because many people fell in love with Morocco's story, and I still really do admire it, but now the narrative going into this World Cup has definitely shifted a bit. Many people were not happy with many incidents during that AFCON tournament. Morocco squeezing through with some questionable calls throughout, but regardless, they still made it to an AFCON final and definitely have a great squad on their hands. Of course, one of the best fullbacks, Achraf Hakimi. And although Brahim Diaz absolutely flopped in that final penalty trying to chip the goalkeeper, he had one hell of a tournament, getting an insane tally throughout. And the depth in the winger department is ridiculous. I'm surprised they didn't call up Mama during this window though, as he was phenomenal during the U20 World Cup. Why would I expect them to bring a U20 World Cup player though? Well, because they just got a new manager. Regragui did resign from the Morocco national team, although he apparently won AFCON, and they did bring in the manager who won the U20 World Cup just now, Ouabi. Morocco got to prepare themselves against some other CONMEBOL nations during this friendly window, where they defeated Paraguay and drew with Ecuador 1-1. No results to really shame for, honestly, as both have been in very impressive form. Look, I know there's a lot of controversy going on with this national team, but the fact stands. They are one of the best sides in Africa, and I'd be quite shocked if they do fumble at this World Cup. Maybe there'll be more pressure on them, and more eye will be on them as well with all of this recent controversy, but I still think they're going to do all right in this group. At the same time, I don't know. And you got the likes of Scotland, who are such a moments-based type of team. We saw it in the last round of World Cup qualification. When nearly everyone ruled them out, they put off an absolute show against Denmark, scoring 4 goals. Recent friendlies against other confederations haven't really gone to plan for them, losing to Japan and Ivory Coast. I know they were testing out some things, still held off a decent defensive display, but Scotland's worry for me is a lot of times they really lack a proper goal scorer. Sure, they randomly get those moments we just talked about with McTominay randomly carrying the side in the goal scoring department, but I still feel like they don't necessarily have that reliable striker. Tommy Conway has had a decent rise this season and they got to utilize him in this international break. Still, he has yet to score a goal for Scotland. And Che Adams still not clinical enough. Maybe they can rely on those moments against Morocco. Steve Clark, not a bad manager for this side, but Morocco, like I said, are just a bit too strong. Maybe if they are looking a bit too stale against Scotland though, Scotland can take advantage. But let's move on to the favorites on paper. As always, and in many tournaments, Brazil. They aren't looking as stellar as they were before, but there's definitely some positives now going in for this team. 2 friendlies against UEFA sides, a loss to France, which to be fair was still close, and this side have an insane amount of depth. And then also they defeated my national team, Croatia, 3-1. During the international break, I feel like Vinny Jr. has really found a way to click with this team, and it's only been proven more and more that they really need to call up Endrick. Absolute catalyst in that match against Croatia, getting 2 assists off the bench, only playing 14 minutes by the way. In terms of that center forward department, they have so many options. Igor Thiago literally just broke the Premier League record of the most goals scored in a single campaign for a Brazilian, literally only halfway through the season as well. Rafinha unfortunately got injured during this international break, but he should be back before the World Cup. It's more of a worry for Barcelona. Things definitely look like they're starting to click for Brazil, and they seem to have more trust in Ancelotti compared to before as well. Cannot take away anything from Brazil against their match against Croatia. Bravo to you guys for defeating us, and yeah, I'm going to change my prediction. Before, I think I overestimated Morocco a bit. I'm going to go back to picking the favorites, Brazil, to top this group. Morocco 2nd, Scotland 3rd, unfortunately, Haiti 4th. Now, if any of these sides do sleep on Haiti, though, they will be sadly mistaken. Now that they have qualified for the World Cup, their squad has improved. Just appointing the dual national Wilson Isidore. The Premier League striker just made his first appearance for the national team in this window, only playing half the match against Tunisia where they did lose, but then he scored a goal against Iceland in a 1-1 draw. Once he starts gelling with the team, he can be a crucial weapon for them against all these other quote-unquote giants in their group. Genuinely, maybe Haiti has what it takes to get at least one upset in this group. They're the heavy underdogs, but it's not like they have such a poor team. Beignet has seemed to figure out this team very well. At times they play some great counter-attacking football and throw off many of their opposition. But do I see Scotland being one of the 3rd place teams to advance to the next round? I'm going to say yes this time. Scotland have what it takes to at least get one win in this World Cup group. Moving on now to Group D, the USA, Paraguay, Australia, and Turkey. This playoff team, Turkey, is one of the few that I got correct. One of the favorites on paper actually pulled through in their path. This Turkey generation is incredible. They've got 2 insanely hyped up wonder kids, Arda Güler and Kenan Yildiz, and they truly deserve all the hype. They've got their leaders as well, like Hakan. Although they just picked up 2 clean sheets and only got 1-0 victories, I still feel like their overall narrative is that they're not necessarily focused on their defensive football. They really like to show their energetic flow in the midfield and the attack. Regardless, they still have some great pieces to potentially keep clean sheets, such as their goalkeeper Chakir, experienced defenders like Demiro, and Guardiola, who is an absolute workhorse. He is all over the pitch. Sometimes I feel like Turkey could really use another significant striker figure. They try to utilize Aktürkoğlu at that striker role in this window, and I feel like he wasn't necessarily the most clinical. He's definitely more effective when he's out wide. But man, this team are full of stars. If they can unite well at this World Cup, they should really have high expectations. But that is my one concern. Will they really be unified? Sometimes when you have the star players that look to be the difference, the team as a whole can crumble under pressure. And Turkey are very familiar to that. And although this group is definitely doable, it is so tough to predict any of these sides to get 4th place. Many might be looking at Australia to be the underdogs, but they've been in fine form. In their recent friendlies, they defeated Cameroon and Curacao 5-1. I've already mentioned it before, but they had an incredible World Cup qualifier campaign. Under Toni Popovic, they did not lose a single match. So many players are excelling in the championship. Iran Kunda against Curacao even just scored a brace. Torre unfortunately had a muscle injury, so we couldn't really see him shine in this international window, but this striker has had a great start at Norwich this season. Sure, they don't have so many flashy names like Turkey, but this is a perfect example of a unified side that can work very well together. And they're going to be motivated as they didn't do that bad in the last World Cup. In fact, they exceeded many expectations. But out of all these teams, no one had a worse window than the hosts themselves, the United States. Like I said, they lost to both Belgium and Portugal, the same sides Mexico faced, with some heavy scorelines. Now, of course, these are two very difficult teams, but these are still heavy defeats. 7 goals conceded in 2 matches. Of course, these are just friendlies, rotating the squad a lot, but the United States had a lot of their top players in that match against Belgium start. But the United States in the second half really rolled out some MLS talent as well. It does seem like the US Spirits are getting crushed once again, but are we really going to fully rule out the hosts? I still think they have something up their sleeve. Christian Pulisic has been great in the Serie A this season. Weston McKennie, very phenomenal at set pieces. We saw it even in the Belgium match. If the USA doesn't listen to all that pressure to give MLS players a chance, I think they have what it takes to work it out. I know USA got grouped in the last Copa America. I know they failed in the Nations League finals, but the World Cup is the main task for them. If they fumble it here, this would be one of the most catastrophic L's in national team history. Worse than missing the 2018 World Cup, I reckon, because all eyes are going to be on them here now. All the pressure as well. But now for that final team we have not talked about yet, Paraguay. Back and forth in this friendly window, winning against Greece, but then losing to Morocco. Like I mentioned previously, Gustavo Alfaro really transformed this side to be more tactical, defensively solid. They sharpened up so beautifully, and I honestly thought they could have another deep World Cup run like in 2010. But honestly, it seems like they've kind of lost the groove since the CONMEBOL World Cup qualifiers. They've only picked up 2 out of 6 wins in their friendlies since. And with them already falling short to some AFC nations, it might be tough for them to compete against the likes of Australia, who can be very explosive on their day. Don't get me wrong, I'm still very much well aware of the talent they have, especially in the back line. Gustavo Gomez and Alderete forming a beautiful partnership. To Diego Gomez, who's been quite reliable for Brighton. If we're going to take a look at the squads on paper alone, they are definitely not the weakest side in this group. You'd argue Australia would be, but I don't know. I just have some weird feeling about them right now. To fumble, it seems like they slowed down a gear. Gustavo Alfaro is phenomenal in World Cup qualification. He has it figured out when he has to play teams from South America, but when it comes to other confederations, it seems like Paraguay do struggle. So I don't know. I'm really torn about this side, and like I said, it feels wrong to put any of these teams in last place, but I think I'm going to pick Paraguay to be in the last position. I'm bumping Australia up to 3rd now. I had them at 4th in my previous video. USA 2nd and Turkey at 1st, but really, I will not be surprised if this order is totally flipped around. This and Group A are probably the toughest groups to call. Very even matchups on paper all around. And I am going to say that Australia are one of the 3rd place teams to advance. Obviously, that's going to leave me short for my picks later on, but I think they have a genuine chance. All right, let's move on to Group E now with Germany, Curacao, Ivory Coast, and Ecuador. Obviously, Curacao are the biggest underdogs in this group, and their situation has gone much worse. Unfortunately, their manager who guided them to the World Cup, Dick Advocat, had to resign as his daughter is ill. Horrible news, of course, wishing him and his family the best, and he definitely made the right decision, family first over football. But this manager has been working with Curacao for a while, and he's had this team figured out very well. In the FIFA series that just commenced, like I mentioned, they lost to Australia 5-1, but also China 2-0. I know Fred Rutten is doing the best he can, and he definitely needs more time with this side, especially since they're such a minnow. Gotta emphasize, this is the smallest team to have ever qualified for the World Cup before by population and size. So if they do anything in this group, it would be an absolute miracle because it is such a deadly group. Of course, they have many top talent coming from the Netherlands, and many of their players actually play for UEFA clubs, so they are an experienced bunch. But all the other teams they're coming up against, these are some top contenders to have some deep runs at the World Cup. So I'm sorry to say, Curacao, you're going to be the side I'm putting at 4th place. The rest is too tricky though. I mean, are we going to see Germany fumble another group stage performance they have in the last 2 World Cups? Definitely some shaky performances here and there, but I feel like their last international break had a lot of positives. 2 victories against Switzerland and Ghana, and like I mentioned, Florian Wirtz against Switzerland pulled off an absolute show. There were definitely question marks for Germany going into their World Cup qualification campaign, as they did lose their first match to Slovakia, but they responded back very well in the last match day, and I feel like they have been doing quite well since. Of course, some improvements are needed. They can still work on their defensive structure, but they have too much quality to ignore. Many solid strikers like Voltamad, Undav, youngster Leonard Karl bursting into the scene, still have that leadership figure Kimmich. It's kind of crazy how they don't necessarily have a potent goalkeeper figure like they had before, really relying on Manuel Neuer in the past, and there were so many other great goalkeepers just under him, but they still have some decent options. I mean, Baumann's been incredible with Hoffenheim this season. So I do think Germany should be able to top this group. Maybe they'll get halted to one of these teams, but I think they'll ultimately prevail at the end. When it comes to Ecuador, I feel like my concerns for them haven't really changed so much. They really don't have a goal-scoring man to utilize. Sometimes it looks like they're allergic to scoring goals as well. This side love to keep it cagey though, and many of their matches recently have finished in draws, including in this last international break. 2-1-1 affairs against some tough teams though, to be fair, Morocco and the Netherlands. Honestly, I could see this side going undefeated, but with 2 draws and 1 win against Curaçao. And it's nuts that they're so poor in this department, because everywhere else they look really solid, especially in the defense. Pacho and Hincapié are some of the best center backs at this tournament, and they have depth in the center back department too. Ordóñez has had a phenomenal rise with Bruges, and of course there's a high-profile center defensive mid Moises Caicedo. They're just lacking proven goal scorers apart from the veteran Enner Valencia, but he's not the same guy like he used to be. Still, I feel like they can play for some draws against those top teams, so I'm still going to favor them to get second place with something like 1 win and 2 draws. And then Ivory Coast, I see them getting 1 win, 1 draw, 1 loss, something like that, putting them at 3rd, but still amongst the best 3rd place teams. This side also just played in AFCON, obviously, making it all the way to the quarterfinals. Or there they had some thrilling games. Some of the results finished 3-2, including their quarterfinal exit to Egypt, which is quite crazy because prior I did praise this side for their defensive abilities as well. But they seem to have some shaky moments, and sides like Egypt, who really relied on those type of moments, similar to Scotland, what I talked about there, they were able to punish them. Egypt only had 4 shots on target, and they scored 3 of them. 29% possession as well. Ivory Coast can still bully you on their day. They have very pacey, energetic wingers. Diallo had many big moments at AFCON, an insane amount of depth to utilize, but also not necessarily a target man type of player. Still, I feel like on paper they have more going for them in the attack, but I feel like Ecuador's solid defense can cancel that out. Still, in these recent friendlies, they went back to clean sheets. 4 goals against South Korea as well, and then a 1-0 victory against Scotland. I see Ivory Coast Ecuador finishing 1-1 for now, and they'll just pick up that loss against Germany. Group F now with Japan, Netherlands, Sweden, and Tunisia. What a difficult group to call, and congratulations to Sweden for turning it around. This side have been in abysmal form in World Cup qualification, not picking up a single win. They let Kosovo even beat them twice in a row. But after they sacked their Danish manager, they brought in Graham Potter, who's actually very familiar with Swedish football, as he managed a club there quite a while back, even taking them to the Europa League. And the form just shifted. In 2 matches, Sweden were able to score 3 goals in each. First, dismantling Ukraine completely. I personally thought Ukraine had some issues of their own, so I didn't really think that result would defy their success later on, as Poland are very difficult to handle in the playoffs, but they scored 3 against them as well. Anthony Alenga banger, and Gyökeres scoring 4 goals within these 2 matches. And now Sweden have returned. There was so much hype around this side before their poor performances, as they do have one of the deadliest looking attacks in Europe. Gyökeres, of course, being the staple figure right now, but Alexander Isak should be returning from injury, hopefully Kulusevski as well. To their other departments as well, very underrated midfielder. Ayari really glued the team well together in the playoffs. To the fullback options, you got Svensson on Dortmund, but Gudmundsson absolutely lit up the playoffs as well. Other good defensive components, Isak Hein in the back line. They're in a very, very tough group. The Netherlands, favorites on paper, and Japan have been great lately. They just got 2 victories against UK nations Scotland and England. And prior, they were able to defeat some other teams, Bolivia, Ghana, even scoring 3 against Brazil. But getting a victory against England at Wembley is definitely a statement victory. This side are already regarded as one of the best teams in Asia, on paper and based on their form as well. They never had a wild deep run at the World Cup, but we did see them excel in the last group stage against 2 UEFA teams as well. With Mitoma back, it's an excellent addition, and one of the most underrated rises from this team is their center defensive midfielder Sano. Japan still gluing wonderfully under Moriyasu, and I honestly expect them to do wonders in this group. Netherlands in their recent break barely defeated a Hollandless Norway and also drew with Ecuador. To be fair though, they had a red card for most of the match, but still, look at those stats. They were just hanging on by a thread. Of course, the talent this side have cannot be ignored, but some of them at club level have not been at their best. Of course, Tottenham have been a mess, meaning Xavi Simons and Van de Ven have not been at their A game. Cody Gakpo is not really adored by Liverpool fans right now. Malen, though, has been settling at Roma very nicely. And also, to their credit, I really do rate their goalkeeper options now. Verbruggen probably the main choice, but Roefs has been immense on Sunderland. And I'm going to repeat myself for the millionth time when I talk about the Netherlands in my prediction videos. I still don't think Koeman's the right guy. Sure, he gets you the results. He took you far in the last Euros, I get it. But with what the Netherlands have to their disposal, they really should be much better. I mean, they have some of the best defenders in Europe, yet they don't really look like the most defensively composed team. I get a lot of comments saying I hate on the Netherlands too much, but me saying this is just me trying to emphasize that you guys should be expecting more based on the talent you've got. Very tough group to call. The only one I feel somewhat safe locking in, and even then I have no idea, is Tunisia. It's kind of hard to judge this side as they just hired a new manager after their quite disappointing AFCON. Sabri Lamouchi though is still undefeated, but he's only faced CONCACAF teams. But yeah, at AFCON, this side should have expected better. Sure, they had a thrilling fight against Nigeria, scoring 2, but they didn't play convincing football against Tanzania, and when they got knocked out by Mali, I unfortunately decided to watch that match. They played so poorly. Only Hannibal and Ali Abdi really made a mark in that match for me. You notice their presence. The rest of the players just misplacing passes constantly, not having any creative flow. Honestly, it was really tough to watch, and I'm sure Tunisia have somewhat improved with their new manager, but this is still quite a difficult group. I'm putting them at 4th place. Now, for the rest, too tough to gauge. Part of me wants to go for an upset though, because I really haven't yet. I was tempted to put Netherlands even lower honestly, but I'll say they finished runners up. I have a good feeling about Japan doing well here, and Sweden to still advance as the 3rd place team. Right, we're halfway done now. Let's move on to Group G, where we've got Belgium, New Zealand, Iran, and Egypt. It's a very underrated group because apart from Belgium, all of these teams have the chance to make history. None of them have made it past the group stage before in any World Cups. And not to mention, Egypt and New Zealand have never picked up a win in the World Cup before. But first things first, I think we gotta predict this side to have way more World Cup experience to top this group: Belgium. Sure, they haven't been that same deadly team compared to 2 World Cups prior, but you definitely sense a rebuild going on. A lot of new players in the attack are coming in clutch now. 2 friendlies recently against the CONCACAF sides, USA and Mexico. We talked about them already, but they destroyed the USA and got halted to a draw against Mexico. Obviously not playing their strongest squad. Courtois has been injured, but we're seeing the new generation make a name for themselves. Debas in the back line is so lethal. Nathan Decat is the emerging rising star. I'm surprised more people are not talking about him. It's a fresh new list, of course, but even some of the veterans have been returning, and I'm pretty sure Lukaku is also going to make his last ever World Cup appearance. Rudy Garcia, I'm a bit skeptical for him, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I think he could be a tad bit better, but still, Belgium in this group, it would be crazy if they do not get 1st place. But in this group, there's been a lot of skepticism whether or not Iran would withdraw from the World Cup. There were loads of rumors that they would, but Infantino has silenced them all, saying publicly it ain't happening, and he even attended an Iran friendly in Turkey against Costa Rica, where he witnessed Team Melli demolish the CONCACAF side 5-0. Their 5th goal was the icing on the cake as well. Gayedi scored a beauty. He's definitely looking like one of their more promising winger options going into this World Cup. Meanwhile, Taremi is still putting an incredible shift at Olympiacos. There's been some controversy about Azmoun's participation due to an Instagram post from my understanding, so it's unsure if he'll make the squad. It's nice to see some new fresh names coming in though, because those key players from the past are definitely not at their peak anymore, such as the beloved Alireza Jahanbakhsh. It's definitely not the most mind-blowing Iranian team we have seen on paper over the years, but still, they could shock the world. Egypt, though, of course, are going to be hungry to get their 1st World Cup win, and I definitely think they have what it takes, as they just made it all the way to the semifinals of AFCON. Obviously, they're one of the more highly regarded teams within the continent. They've won the most AFCON trophies, but not many were expecting them to have such a deep run. Their 1-0 loss to Senegal in the AFCON semi-final was their manager Hossam Hassan's first competitive loss, and he's been at the helm for 2 years. And prior, they had some really good displays, definitely tactically set themselves up very well against the Ivory Coast, allowing their opposition to have so much possession, but being so lethal in those counterattacks. Sometimes those lethal attacking options of Omar Mamouche and Mohamed Salah can be all you need to flourish, but we got to give credit to some other key components as well. Their midfielder Emma Mashur was really impressive during AFCON as well. Their goalkeeper El Shanawi has saved his club and national team many times. There's still some criticism for this side not really utilizing some of their youth talent, but when Hossam Hassan is able to pull off the results he's been able to achieve, I don't really want to question him too much, especially in this group. I mean, even in the last 2 recent friendlies, clean sheets in both matches and 4 goals against Saudi Arabia, and holding off Spain to scoring no goals is quite the achievement. But none of these teams should rule out New Zealand. They are one of the lowest ranked teams at this World Cup, but they can pull off the odd result. We just saw them defeat Chile 4-1, even without their veteran Chris Wood, who has been injured, but many are still optimistic he will return before the World Cup. Even then, you've got a solid, energetic defense with the likes of Tyler Binden to midfielders like Marcos Damenic. Respect to them for organizing so many friendlies against some tougher competitors from other confederations, as theirs is definitely not as difficult. They cruised through World Cup qualification in all honesty, scoring loads of goals against all their opposition. They're definitely going to put off a good fight, and I wouldn't be surprised for them to squeeze in a draw, even maybe against Belgium, but I still think that they are probably going to be the side to finish 4th place, and I'm going to go with Iran 3rd and Egypt 2nd. However, to me, Iran might be that side that do struggle to get some wins in this World Cup group. Obviously, I'd like to see them prove me wrong, but I do think they're going to struggle, maybe even getting 2 draws in this group. I'm going to say that Iran are one of the 3rd place teams to not advance to the next round. Very tough, obviously, to call which 3rd place teams will not make it. That one's truly a gamble, but we shall see. Group H now with Spain, Uruguay, Saudi Arabia, and Cape Verde. I'm not going to spend too much time on this group compared to the others because it seems pretty clear-cut which teams will be either 1st or 2nd and which teams will finish 3rd or 4th. Now, of course, anything's possible. It's football, but Cape Verde's results haven't been too brilliant lately. They still have not won a single match after the World Cup qualifiers, and they also didn't play at AFCON, so we couldn't judge them there. Of course, they're going to play with a lot of pride going into this World Cup, and Bubista has done a fantastic job to get this nation here in the first place. Underrated ballers in this team with the likes of Kevin Lanini, Sidney Lopez Cabral, to the veterans like Mendes, who got to watch this team really grow during his career. Their center back options are pretty good too when you've got Moreira, the youngster on Sporting, but also Logan Costa on Villarreal, their highest profile player. He suffered a lot of injuries this season, and still Cape Verde were able to do well without him. With him back at the World Cup, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised to see Cape Verde at least squeak in a win. Saudi Arabia obviously investing so much money into football, but it hasn't really seemed like they've really excelled since that huge jump. They did scrape through in the World Cup qualifiers 4th round to get here, barely defeating Indonesia and having a goalless draw against Iraq. After they were able to defeat the Ivory Coast in a friendly, but after lost them all, including to 2 other African nations, one of them being 4-0 to Egypt and then losing to Serbia as well. There are some talents blossoming like Musab Al-Jawari in the midfield, Abdul Hamid at fullback, but yeah, like I said, I do think both of these sides are going to get 3rd and 4th place. It's just a matter of preference on your order. Do you know what? For now, I might go for a surprise pick, if you even want to call it one. Saudi Arabia finished 4th place. Cape Verde sneak into 3rd, maybe just off a goal difference as well. Who knows how that matchup is going to go against Spain, but either way, I don't see the 3rd place team qualifying Cape Verde. I'm going to say that they do get knocked out in the group stage. So yeah, that obviously leaves Uruguay and Spain as my final 2 picks, and I'm going to stick with the basic order. Uruguay 2nd, Spain 1st. Obviously, everyone was let down that they did have to resort to canceling that finalissima against Argentina. And in their 2 friendlies, they were able to crush Serbia, but go goalless with Egypt. Still, it's by far one of the craziest squads at this World Cup. Wonder kids like Yamal, all the other Barca options pulling through like Pedri, Fermin Lopez, Olmo. I'm curious to see how it's going to go for them in the goalkeeper department. Obviously, they've been relying on Unai Simon, but Raya on Arsenal has been excellent this season. In terms of Uruguay, there's been a lot of concerns for this team as it seems like the morale has been a bit bad. Many complaints about Bielsa, even with some veterans to the game, but still they got 2 draws in this window with some admirable fights, even picking up a draw against England away. Instrumental figures to this team with the likes of Valverde. I mean, some of his performances for Real Madrid this season have proven that he is world class. And even the more underrated shouts like Maxi Araujo, one of the most instrumental players in that Champions League affair against Bodo. There are some concerns for the striker department though, as their main forward Darwin Núñez, he got snubbed off the squad for Al Hilal in the Saudi Pro League and has not been playing in their recent league matches. Only gets to showcase himself in the AFC Champions League. The lack of playing time he's about to get before the World Cup is obviously concerning, but I still think Uruguay have what it takes to at least finish as the runners-up in this group. Let's move on to the group of death now, Group I, with Norway, Senegal, France, and now newly qualified Iraq. Now, previously, I stated that whoever qualifies out of those playoff teams in this group, they're probably cooked, and I'm not really going to change that opinion. However, Iraq, I'm genuinely really curious to see what kind of fight they put off against all of these very informed giants, as Iraq's fighting spirit was really showcased very uniquely amongst all the other teams that qualified for the World Cup. I mean, when you take a look at all the World Cup qualifier games each of these teams played in this group, we've had France play 6, Norway play 9, Senegal play 10, but Iraq played 21. Not only is it absurd that they played that amount of matches, but with this whole situation going on with the war, Iraq even had some trouble playing their last match against Bolivia in the Interconfederation playoffs. This left Iraq in a very doubtful situation if they could even attend, as the airspaces were closed. Their manager Graham Arnold tried his best to even reschedule the match, but instead FIFA came up with a solution. Since the situation kind of cooled down in Jordan, they first traveled to land from Iraq to there, then took a plane from Jordan to Lisbon, then Lisbon to Monterrey. The journey was recorded to be somewhere between 35 to 40 hours, but probably even more honestly, just considering how many connections they had to endure. Of course, they were going to go out with a bang against Bolivia. They defeated them 2-1, and Grant Arnold being at the helm, I rate this manager. He also had to endure a long qualification process with Australia in the last World Cup, defied the odds there, did decent at the World Cup as well, taking Australia to the round of 16 only to get eliminated by the champions. So you know what, I'm not gonna lie, previously I said that a lot of these teams are gonna look at Iraq thinking how many goals can they score against them to kind of separate between one another if they have to rely on goal difference. However, I think Iraq are better than that. I'm not saying I think they're going to make it out of this group alive, but I think we got to give them a small chance. Sure, it would be a huge shock because all of these teams have been in phenomenal form lately. Norway scoring the most goals amongst all the UEFA World Cup qualifier teams, Senegal being the AFCON champions, yes, the AFCON champions, and France, what more do I have to say about this side? The most stacked side on paper, arguably, in this entire tournament. They just defeated 2 highly regarded South American nations in these recent friendlies. And to just showcase their depth, they did not even bring close to their strongest lineup against Colombia and still spanked them 3-1. I mean, part of me thinks there's a chance for France to slip in this group, but I don't know. Just seems like they're going all out in Deschamps' last ever tournament with this nation. Now, there has been some fitness concerns for their star player Kylian Mbappe, as he's been having some knee issues, but at the same time, it seems like everything is under control. He's going to be very motivated to do whatever it takes to play at this tournament, as he has the chance to break some incredible individual records in only his 3rd World Cup played in. You've got the most recent Ballon d'Or winner on this team as well, Ousmane Dembele. Olise, who's been in some of the finest form for Bayern this season. I think many of you are well aware how stacked France are. I'm not going to go through their entire lineup. They are set in pretty much every position. Norway, with the recent performances, are obviously getting a lot of hype. It was a bit dull in the goal scoring department in the most recent matches, but they were Hollandless against the Netherlands. He did play for a bit against Switzerland. His tally for the Norwegian national team is unreal. 49 goals in 55 appearances. That's almost as fine as Puskás's ratio, and he has the chance to make it better. I love to see that they've been utilizing some players from Bodo, like Jens Petter Hag, Patrick Berg. These were huge difference makers in the Champions League this season. I think their defense has upgraded over time as well, so obviously Norway can be a serious threat. I am a bit worried for them though, because they are one of the most hyped up teams going into this tournament for a potential underdog run, as Norway haven't played in the World Cup since 1998. I'm just hoping this isn't a Denmark 2022 repeat, if you know what I mean. Now, in regards to Senegal, I already talked about that insane AFCON final they endured with Morocco. Pape Thiaw did receive a suspension, but only for CAF matches, meaning he will still be in charge during the World Cup. And yeah, we're not going to count that Morocco result. This guy only lost one match to Brazil in a friendly. Sadio Mane showed how important of a leader figure he is for this team at AFCON, and he didn't get the chance to play at the last World Cup due to an injury, so he's going to be fueled to make such an impact for his nation here. Other veterans like Koulibaly still turning up, but all the young talent coming into this team, I mean, it's outrageous the depth they have too. I watched this side play a few matches in Morocco. They look extremely organized. Sometimes do lack that clinical finishing from the likes of Nicholas Jackson, but I don't think anyone's going to underestimate this side. They are looking like one of the best teams in Africa. I think anything's possible for the top three, genuinely. Even though France have been looking so stellar, they could be guilty to slipping to these top national teams. Here's going to be my order, though. I'm going to go with France first, Senegal second, Norway third, and Iraq fourth. But Norway are still going to make it to the knockouts. I just rate Senegal too highly right now, and I think they have more reasons to show the world what they're made of with this incredible crop of players they have to their disposal. All right, moving on to group alliteration, Group J. We've got Argentina, Algeria, Austria, and Jordan. You know I'd love to see an upset here, and there were moments I thought Jordan had what it took to push through, but right now, I don't really see it. I'm going to put them at 4th place. Now, they will be putting off a great fight, don't get me wrong. Their last 2 friendly results finished 2-2 in each of their matches. They're basically the Czechia of friendlies. And honestly, apart from Argentina, I do think that their opponents, Austria and Algeria, can be prone to slipping to a side like this because they love their counter-attacking football. But one of their key attackers tore his ACL and is ruled out for the World Cup, and one of their other underrated gems, Ali Olwan, is looking doubtful. Still, there is some hope for him to return. The rise this team have had is ridiculous. Honestly, I really wouldn't be surprised if they make it out still, even with these injuries. We cannot forget they were Asia Cup finalists and right after qualified for their first ever World Cup in quite some fashion as well. And they still have one of their most highly profile players, Moussa Tamari. And maybe the youngster strikers can push through. You've got Ibrahim Sabra, who was playing in Turkey as a super sub. We saw him score beauty against Besiktas and then just dipped. And now he plays in Croatia on loan for Lokomotiva. And actually had a decent start there, already scoring 2 goals. Honestly, amongst all the debutants, Jordan are one of those sides I still have the most faith in compared to the others to do something in this group stage. I'm telling you, if Algeria or Austria even slightly underestimate this side, they're going to take advantage, and I don't see them getting 3 for 3 losses. However, with the injury concerns, I think it's still safe to put them at 4th place for now. Both Algeria and Austria had huge displays in this March window. Austria annihilating Ghana and Algeria destroying Guatemala 7-0. Now, part of me was thinking to rule out Algeria in this group stage, but honestly, under Petkovic, I think they're a very solid team. He has a lot of experience in major international tournaments as well. He didn't do too badly at AFCON. I know everyone's kind of forgetting about their campaign after getting embarrassed by Nigeria. They got absolutely outplayed there, but it really felt like they were just out-physioed throughout the match. I don't really see the likes of Austria or Jordan outbodying the Algerians. They're a very technical team. The youngsters like Maza only getting better and better. Amora being one of the top goal scorers in Africa World Cup qualification. Despite Wolfsburg's woes lately, he's still getting in decent numbers. Mahrez is past his prime, but we'll see how influential he is. Lots of depth in this Algerian team with a fantastic manager, so I wouldn't rule them out in this World Cup yet. Algeria taking on Austria is going to be one of the craziest battles in this World Cup group stage. Very even matchup in my opinion. I wouldn't let some of the friendly results fool you. I mean, that goes for every national team obviously, but Austria in particular, they're able to dismantle Turkey in incredible fashion, only to lose to them when it matters in the Euros. It was quite the crazy loss considering they topped the group of death at the tournament. But still, they have one of the most underrated midfield units in all of Europe. The only thing that seems safe to do in this group is putting the previous champions Argentina at 1st place. Some criticizing their lack of preparations as they didn't take on the strongest teams on paper in the recent friendlies. But still, they put off an absolute showing against Zambia. And this side haven't really seemed to slow down since their World Cup victory. They won the Copa America straight after. And new youngsters are pulling into the scene like Nico Paz. Messi also seems well rested and ready for his last ever World Cup. Yeah, I'm going to lock them in at 1st. I'm just really torn about 2nd and 3rd. I think last time I said Austria, but this time I'm going to put Algeria to just edge them out. They get 2nd place, Austria 3rd, and Jordan 4th. I'm still feeling a bit guilty and weird putting Jordan at the bottom. I think they are capable of surprises, like I said, but I'm going to stick to this order for now. All right, moving on to Group K, we got Portugal, Colombia, Uzbekistan, and newly qualified DR Congo. I told you all DR Congo is going to be the biggest threat to this group amongst all those teams in that playoff path. So I don't think any of these sides are really happy that they've qualified. In the last AFCON, they did get knocked out in the round of 16, but still put off a very admirable fight. And in that round of 16 exit, it went to extra time against Algeria. In that AFCON, they were missing one of their best attackers, Wissa, and now he has returned. Although DR Congo did qualify and the favorable thing did happen, I was surprised they kept it so close with Jamaica as well. It took them to take it to extra time to score a 100th minute goal. Regardless, they don't care. Job's done. They've qualified for their first World Cup since 1974. And they have a very physical team that can throw off one of these group favorites. Sadiki in the midfield is an absolute unit. Sure, there are times where it looks like they should be scoring more, but once Wissa settles back into the team, they can be a proper threat. And now the squad might even upgrade as they're trying to bring in PSG prodigy Mayulu, rumors for Bichiabo as well from Leipzig, and even Milambo on Brentford. Even though this is only Uzbekistan's first World Cup they have qualified for, they are very much known for their defensive abilities. And in their last 4 matches where they didn't lose, in 3 of them they've kept clean sheets. But yeah, the likes of Yusupov, in over half the matches he's played in, he's secured clean sheets. Obviously helps when you've got Hushunov as well, but the creativity this team have as well in the attack, with Fazuliev and Shomurodov even playing for the same club. Colombia did have a tough schedule in the recent friendlies, but they were not the most convincing, getting in opportunities against Croatia, but were very wasteful, and conceded 3 goals to France's C team. Still, it's too hard to rule out this side when they have one of the most informed players this season, Lucho. And not to mention the new gen of Luis Suarez. He's had clinical moments like scoring against PSG in the Champions League, but his tally this season has been ridiculous overall. Very pacey and energetic team that can be tough to break down still, but I am a bit concerned how they're going to handle such a physical side like DR Congo, or even a defensive unit like Uzbekistan. It seems like the overall fan base is a bit split about their manager Lorenzo. Obviously these were just friendlies, but when you're losing to the likes of Croatia and France with not their strongest squad, it does make me question Colombia a bit. Portugal were also definitely experimenting and did have some key players missing. No Ronaldo, no party against Mexico, but did get a decent win against the United States. Pretty hard to judge. They were clearly experimenting a lot, but to me, this is still a top national team. They got one of the best fullbacks, one of the most hard-working attacking midfielders, to also some of the best midfielders that are already very unified together at the same club. Portugal are guilty of slipping in the qualifiers, obviously, but I still think they're going to find a way to top this group. As for the rest, though, I'm torn. I mean, Colombia, like I said, were not convincing. They could easily slip to one of these underdogs. Even though Colombia did lose to Croatia, I watched the match and Colombia still had many dangerous attacks, just kind of failed to connect the dots. They definitely still have what it takes to sharpen up by the time the World Cup begins. I definitely wouldn't feel too secure right now as a Colombian, but I'm still going to place them at 2nd place for now. And for the rest, I will say DR Congo get 3rd and Uzbekistan 4th, but I'm going to say that this 3rd place team does not advance to the next round. But now the final group we are looking at this video, Group L, the one I'll be paying attention to the most. England, Croatia, Ghana, and Panama. Let's talk about my national team first, since we were just talking about them already a bit with their match against Colombia. Yeah, Croatia were victorious there despite experimenting a lot and put off a decent fight against Brazil. It was pretty end-to-end despite losing there too. Anyway, a lot of positives. Despite Croatia not playing their strongest squads at times, they still looked very organized. We learned that Luka Vuskovic needs to start now for the national team. He has been insane this season for Hamburg. I got some shade for calling him the best wonder kid in this group, but I genuinely think he still is. He scores bangers as a center back, even scored one of the nicest goals in the Bundesliga this season. It was a deflection against Colombia, but he got on the score sheet there too. Gvardiol still recovering from injury. We should have him back by the time the World Cup rolls around. Livakovic, although he's gone through a weird series of events this season with clubs, now that he's returned to Dinamo, he still looks like a solid option in between the sticks. Midfield depth, even though Brozovic retired, we got his regen Petar Sucic. Baturina has been incredible at Como. And of course, Luka Modric, proving that age is just a number. A lot of other experience on this team too. Perisic is still doing wonderfully at PSV. Seems like everything's kind of clicking right now with Croatia. They're looking like a serious threat coming up in this tournament. For those of you that say I overhyped this team too much, sure, the Euros didn't go to plan, but now this is the tournament Croatia adores, the World Cup. 3 medals to their name. Although this is extremely different to the 2018 squad, obviously, I still think it is an incredible crop of players. But of course, this is not an easy group, and Ghana, one of their future opponents, is going to be quite tough to predict. They had a horrendous last international break, losing to both Austria and Germany, which resulted in Otto Addo getting sacked. There was some rumors about the former World Cup winner Loh taking charge of Ghana. He would definitely be able to sniff his way through victory, but I'm pretty sure he denied the rumors. So Ghana put themselves in a risky situation and also unpredictable. I have no idea what to make out of them right now. They're still a dangerous team on paper, obviously, when you've got the likes of Semenyo. Mohamed Kudus is also still recovering from injury. Although this team have some experience in the midfield with Thomas Partey, I think they might lack some depth there. Honestly, at this current moment of time, I don't think Ghana are very prepared for this World Cup. Not to mention, they shockingly did not qualify for AFCON. Meanwhile, Panama are clearly doing whatever they can to face African sides. They took on South Africa twice, like I mentioned, where they were even victorious in one of the occurrences. This team made their debut in 2018, but since, I think are looking a lot more solid and play with much more identity. Carrasquilla in the midfield really is the glue to this team, but they have solid fullback options like Murillo, and their manager Christiansen has really solidified himself within this nation. Really going toe-to-toe with some of the best teams in CONCACAF. I wouldn't be surprised if he can take down Ghana. But let's analyze the group favorites here, England. They did not have such an impressive window. Both of their matches played in Wembley, they couldn't win either. In both those matches though, it kind of seemed like England were not playing with any identity whatsoever. I know I was knocking Colombia a bit for not doing so well in their friendlies, but England in this matches, although they kept it close, didn't really look like the players were really comfortable with one another. Now granted, in all fairness, they didn't have their main forward Harry Kane for these friendlies. That's obviously going to be a huge loss, but when you look at all the depth England have, it's still a bit concerning that they couldn't really find a solution. Not to mention they were missing the likes of Rice and Saka as well. And Rice has been a phenomenal midfielder this season. But some of the more well-known players like Jude Bellingham have also kind of dipped in form and have been suffering some injuries themselves. So yeah, and like I already mentioned, this goes for all the friendlies we've been talking about. You only should really take them with a grain of salt because obviously, these aren't the strongest sides we're looking at, and there is a lot of experiments being implemented, but it's still quite interesting to look at England's lack of identity at this moment. This might be the master plan, though. England were in poor form also going into the last World Cup, and then they absolutely exploded at the beginning until they faced France. Last time I said first, but with them taking on Croatia in their first match in Dallas, I know it's not the popular opinion, and I know I'm going to get roasted in the comments for this, but I think Croatia have what it takes to top this group right now. Opinion might change though, obviously. I'm still going to back England to get second. I really wouldn't be surprised if Ghana totally fumble this, but let's see what management they work out with. They're too tough to gauge right now. For now, I'm going to say they still get third place and Panama fourth. But there you have it, guys. Those are all of my updated World Cup predictions. Just my personal thoughts, obviously. Let me know yours as always in the comments below. Thank you all so much for making it to the end of this very long video. Hope you all enjoyed. Like I said, make sure to subscribe if you want to watch much more World Cup content. And yeah, I'll try to upload part 2 of this video with my knockout bracket as soon as I can. You're going to see me in a totally new room, so bear with me, but I'll see you all very, very soon regardless. Take care. Boa noite.